dark is coming. We are all open our eyes. We are all open our heart. We are all open our mind under the same sky. Not only one in blood and land. Not only one on skin's color and language. We have one spirit. We are one in struggle. Let's reach our dream together.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dominic Tanchico, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, if any of you have any questions regarding our discussion, don't hesitate to send them to us by entering it in the comment section of whatever social media platform you're watching this on, and I will be here to cater to them for our guest speaker. Welcome to the live webinar series of ESME.ph, an e-learning marketplace for Filipino professionals where one can develop relevant and in-demand skills through masterclasses in different fields of learning. If you want to learn more about us, feel free to visit our page at www.esme.ph. For those who are watching on Facebook and YouTube, feel free to share this link to the stream to the people who you think will be interested in today's webinar. This webinar is in partnership with ASEAN Youth Organization, an ASEAN-approved nonprofit organization that spreads awareness of ASEAN to over 200 million young people in Southeast Asia. This webinar is also brought to you by the Rotary and Rotaract Club of Alabang Madrigal Business Park. So I bet all of you want to know about our topic for today, right? So as you can see from our title, our topic is all about the best practices in corporate operations. According to Forbes, business operations are no longer simply nice to have. If there is anything this pandemic has proven to us, it's that businesses have to adapt and evolve, and to do that, they have to they had to overcome many challenges along the way. Major major issues include having to improve efficiency and streamline processes. Thus, it highlights the need to invest in corporate operations. So, how can we ensure that our companies and teams employ the best practices in corporate operations? Well, luckily for you and for all of us here, that is what our speaker for today will be educating us. So, our guest speaker has over 19 years of leadership experience in the BPO, contact center, shared services industry in the Philippines, and has worked with many top tier multinational organizations since 2001. He is passionate about people development, creating a positive culture and working environment, client and stakeholder relations, customer advocacy, and running day to day operations. Currently, he is the COO of GHL Systems Philippines Incorporated and oversees operations as a whole. So, let us not wait furthermore. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Sir John Pastor.
Morning, everyone. So happy to be here.
Good
Thank you
morning,
for having
sir.
me today. Really
So,
excited to talk about my journey in operations. Morning, Dominic.
morning, sir.
Morning
So,
to all the guests watching.
I'll be giving the floor to you now, sir. So, let's
Sure.
start it on.
Okay. All right. So I have a few slides to present, but thank you so much, Dominic, for that lively introduction. So my name is John Pastor. As Dominic mentioned, I have been in operations for like 19, 20 years. So I started actually I started my journey in operations way back in 2001. But prior to that, I was in sales. So let's go through the slides so I can share the best practices in corporate operations, which I really hope would be helpful for everyone watching today. Next slide, please, Dom. Okay, so these are the topics that I wanted to discuss with you. I'll just give you a brief background about myself. Then I'll go through, a definition, clear definition of operations, because some of you may not be familiar with what operations is all about. Then afterwards, I'll, be talking about best practices in operations, both from a concept perspective, and I'll also be providing some real life examples that have actually happened, in my journey. And then obviously, we are currently faced with the COVID-19 pandemic. So as an operator, as an operations head, or even as an operations staff, what do you do? I mean, how do you ensure that the business is still thriving? So I'll give you some hints and tips later, and then I'll share my favorite quote, and then we'll go through. I mean, the Q&A can happen anytime. You can ask your questions, as Dominic mentioned earlier. So please feel free to interrupt so Dominic can ask the questions. All right. So next slide, please, Dominic. Okay. So a brief background about myself. I graduated from De La Salle University with a degree in human resource management. I never really got to practice it, but the concepts that I learned from an HRM perspective, I was able to apply in my day-to-day work in the operations area. As mentioned earlier, initially I started, after college, I ventured into sales first, car sales, real estate sales, and then I found my true calling probably way back in 2000, 2001. That's when I joined the business process outsourcing industry, or in short, it's a BPO industry. If you're not familiar with that, some people may refer to it as the call center industry or the contact center industry. It's actually pretty big here in the Philippines. Most of the clients, let's say from the US, the UK, or Australia, most of them would actually outsource the work to the Philippines, and it's a big part of the economy here in the Philippines. If you're not familiar with that, the latest terminology, so some people call it like the shared services industry. So that's one of the the new terminologies that they have for BPO industry. So I spent 20 years in the industry, have worked for companies such as Convergys, HSBC, Citibank, Telstra. So these are some of the top tier companies that I've worked for in the past. Currently, I'm connected with GHL Systems Philippines Incorporated. It's actually it's a fintech company, and we are in the payments industry. Our headquarters is in Malaysia, and you know the operations concept, it can actually be mirrored in whatever industry you're in. So it doesn't matter if you're running a restaurant, it doesn't matter if you're running a hotel or working for the BPO industry, in the BPO industry or the payments industry. So some of the concepts, some of the best practices that I'll be sharing with you today can be mirrored, so you can easily use it, for whatever industry you're in. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so let me define first what is operations. So when you talk about operations, you're talking about uh, the frontliners. So these are the people that you see day to day. Let's say, for example, you're in a restaurant. So you're talking about the waiters, the cashier. Those are people in operations. So the definition here are members of a business that affect production, distribution, and service management. So it's very essential that the operations staff are efficient and effective, so that the day-to-day business of whatever company is running smoothly. So this is a critical part of any organization. But when you talk about operations management, so it's very, the scope is very wide, but essentially it's all about planning and implementing and supervising the production of goods or services. So in my case, in the BPO industry, when we talk about operations, we're talking about the people receiving the calls in a call center setting. So they receive calls from whatever location. It could be the US, the UK. It could be within the country as well. So that's actually the definition of operations in the contact center setting. Um, and operations is not limited to those people that are answering the phones. Obviously, these staff, they also report into, let's say, supervisors and managers, and so really different layers of management. And depending on how large the operations is, it can go from as small as, let's say, 10 people to as big as probably 1,000 or more people. And it could be in various locations within the business network. So in my case, in my experience, I've managed as large as about 2,000 staff, and they're located in 3-4 different locations within the Philippines, where I'm from. Okay, I hope that I was able to clarify what operations is. We can go to the next slide now, Dominic. Okay, so here we're gonna go to the details now of operations. So I have been in operations, as mentioned earlier, for close to 20 years. I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer of JHL. And some of the things that I've learned in my journey in the BPO industry, I'm able to actually use as well in the fintech and payments industry. So some of these I wanted to share with you, just in case you guys want to enter the operations area, because this is something that's truly exciting for me. So it's an exciting part of the business, because it's exciting because you're, how do you call this? You're in the limelight. That's where the action is. So some of the things that I have learned throughout my journey, first one you see there is be ready to get your hands dirty and roll up your sleeves mentality. So it's all about the mindset. Okay, so the mindset, it all starts there. You have to ensure that you know what the business is all about. Okay, so you need to make sure that you know the details, and you need to make sure that you are ready to help. Let's say one of your staff needs help in answering questions from a customer. You need to be able to do that on a daily basis. So your mentality plays a big part in making sure that the operations run smoothly. Okay. Second one there is, I call it MBWA, or management by walking around. As a manager or as a supervisor in the operations area, particularly in the contact center or call center industry, majority of us, based on my experience, there's tons of emails. Okay, so tendency is for leaders to sit on their desk, read emails, answer emails, do reports. I'm not saying that's not important. What I'm saying is, you know, you need to be able to walk around. When I say walk around, it's literally walking around the floor of your operations area. Why? Why is that important? Because you need to be able to connect with your staff. You need to be able to make sure that your staff is, doing things correctly. You need to ensure that you're there to answer questions. Um, Walking around doesn't necessarily mean that you just literally walk around, but you need to, go to each and every staff or employee that you have, and just saying hi, asking questions, and making sure that, hey, are you doing okay? Do you need help? So those are critical things to do if you're a leader in the operations area. Third one on my list is create a coaching culture. What do I mean by this? So it's imperative in the operations arena that you are able to provide feedback and coaching to your staff. They need to understand, what they're doing good, and what are their areas for improvement. So this is something that should be done regularly. It could be, weekly. It could be monthly. But you need, as a leader, you need to be able to schedule that accordingly, and you need to be able to provide that necessary feedback. And it doesn't matter if the staff is an outperformer, meaning to say the staff that you have, let's say you have 10 staff, you rank them accordingly based on their performance. And it doesn't mean that if you have someone who's performing well, you don't coach that person. So no, it doesn't mean that way. So you need to be able to spend time with each and every staff, and your coaching style should be customized per person. So you don't put them in a box. You need to be able to understand their areas of strength and their areas for improvement per person, per staff. Fourth on my list is documentation. So it's something that I'm very passionate about. So you need to document everything. When you talk to your staff, as I mentioned in the third bullet point there, so coaching, you need to be able to document that. Make sure that you have a copy. Make sure that your staff has a copy. Because why is it important? Because you will actually go back to that document in the future. So, for example, I coach someone, and we talk about, let's say, his area for improvement, let's say his listening skills. And then obviously you need, after a couple of weeks, you will coach the person again, and then you will detail there if he or she has improved in that area for improvement. So that's something that you need to document so that you can go back literally. Next on my list is build your operating rhythm. So when I say operating rhythm, you need to have some sort of schedule, some sort of, you know, how do you call this? So it's like a guide, so that you need to create for your team and for yourself, so that people understand that there is a system that needs to be navigated. So, for example, when I mentioned coaching earlier, so is it weekly? Is it monthly? So you need to be able to create that operating rhythm so that not only the managers, but let's say the supervisors understand that, hey, I need to coach my team on a regular basis. Weekly, it's scheduled. You can use, let's say, Outlook, if that's the email platform that you're using. So there are calendars there. You can schedule them accordingly. And this operating rhythm needs to be, when you have new supervisors coming in, when you have new managers coming in, you need to be able to cascade this operating rhythm to new hires, so that they understand that there's a systematic approach in the operations area. Next on my list is review your numbers. So numbers is very important, critical. You need to be able to justify, let's say, why performance went down, and you need to understand, let's say, why performance improved. So there are a lot of KPIs, as we call them, or key performance indicators, that measure the performance of a team, of a group, of the entire operations, which will fall, into the entire organization's scorecard, as we call it. So you need to know your numbers. If you're in operations, you need to, let's say, one example, let's say customer satisfaction rating. If for this week your rating is, let's say, 70% and your target is 85%, you need to track that. You need to understand why it's at 70%, how come you're not meeting the target, and what are the actions that you need to do. And you need to, cascade to your staff so that you can move the needle and move those numbers up. Next one is focus on efficiency improvement and cost reductions. Very important. Operations is not a revenue generating department. More or less, that's the sales area. So only the sales teams can bring revenue into the organization. If you're in the operations area, your focus should be on improving the efficiency of your team, making sure that process is followed, making sure that cost as well is reduced. When I say cost, maybe we're talking about, basic examples would be, let's say, overtime pay. Especially if you have a huge workforce, you need to be able to ensure that overtime is only done uh, on a necessary basis, only if necessary. I mean, so we don't just approve overtimes that people request for. You need to understand that this has a huge impact in the revenue of the company. So as an operator, we call it OPEX. You need to be able to ensure that your OPEX is stable and in control. Next on my list is be proactive, not reactive. So, wow, I learned this the hard way, actually. I just wanted to share an example. So I was managing, I'm not going to mention the name of the company anymore. I was managing a team previously, probably 10, 11 years ago. And we were, the client that we had was based out of the United Kingdom, the UK. And it was actually my first time to manage a UK based account. And I was used to managing a US based account. So tendency before, because we had so many things to do, was, let's say, the tendency of the management team and the staff was to just react to all the, let's say, customer complaints. We would react, let's say a customer complains and sends an email or calls us. We would answer the email. We would answer the phone call, and they apologize to the customer. But the UK account that we were managing, actually the general manager talked to me one time. We don't practice it that way in the UK. That was what he mentioned to me. So what he said was we need to be more proactive, meaning to say if we need to anticipate the complaints, we need to understand if there is a trend of what types of complaints do we get, and if you feel that you can address the complaint proactively, meaning to say before a customer raises a complaint, you are proactive enough to, hey, Mr. Customer, I can see in your account, for example, I can see in your account that this is what happened. So this is the action that I'm doing so that it doesn't happen again. So that's what I mean by being proactive. So you are able to anticipate concerns or problems, and you are able to address these concerns and problems proactively without having to wait for a customer to complain. Last on my list there is be collaborative. So an organization has many departments. We're talking about marketing, sales, obviously operations. There are support functions as well, such as, let's say, training, HR, quality assurance. So operations, as mentioned earlier, if you're there in that area, in that department, you are part of the team that is customer facing, but you cannot do it alone. You need to say you need the help of other departments. You need to ensure that you collaborate with, let's say, sales, let's say human resources, because it's a team effort. You cannot you know bring up the company's performance with just operations and not cooperating or collaborating with other departments. So it's a team effort. Make sure that um, you know let's say human resources, they need to be um, invited. One example that I can give you is whenever we have operations meetings, I make sure that at least, let's say, once or twice a month, I invite a member of the human resources team in that meeting. Why? Because the team in operations might have questions that are related to HR or human resources that you cannot answer. So it's only them that can answer this. So it's essential that you invite them, and a learning from this practice as well is that the HR team is able to understand better what you guys do in operations. So it's a win-win approach for both departments actually. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. Now we are being faced with this pandemic here in the Philippines ever since March. Um, in my experience, we worked from home from March until probably July. Purely work from home, and then maybe August to September we did alternating work from home and work from the office. But starting December, we're working from the office already. but not all companies are in that sort of setup. I know of companies that are currently still in work from home mode. So what do you do? So how do you motivate your team? If you're in operations, how do you engage your team? So we are, right now currently using a lot of platforms in terms of meetings. So one example is what we're using, StreamYard right now. We're using this. Most of the organizations I know use Zoom or Google Meet. So these meetings must still happen. Meaning to say, whatever operating rhythm you had previously while meeting face to face must still happen. So you still need to schedule these meetings uh, via Zoom or via whatever platform you need to make it happen, because it's essential that you meet with your team so that you can talk about performance, you can set expectations, you can talk about actions that need to happen. So this is very essential. um, Touch base with your team regularly, as mentioned. You cannot um, let go of the momentum, meaning to say if you've already scheduled weekly meetings with your team or daily meetings, so it still needs to happen. It doesn't necessarily mean that, let's say, if you meet face to face for, let's say, an hour, it doesn't mean that you need to do the same thing in Zoom for an hour. It doesn't necessarily have to be that to be like that. So you can meet with them probably 30 minutes at least. Using the phone aside from the normal emails. So this is part and parcel of what I mentioned earlier about being proactive. Um, Emails are good, but tendency is we get bogged down by emails because, like myself, my experience right now with my current work, probably receive 800, 900 emails a day, and you just can't sit on your desk and read emails the whole day. So if there is something urgent, if there is something very important, I would suggest and recommend that you use the phone and call the person that you need to talk to, because the communication will be better. uh, the sense of urgency will be there and will be addressed if there, let's say, there are actions that need to happen immediately. Anticipate needs of both internal and external stakeholders. Again, this is something that we need to do now that we are in this pandemic. You need to be able to proactively engage with your stakeholders, both internal. When I say internal stakeholders, I mean the CEO of the company, the management committee, the other departments. External stakeholders would be your clients, your customers, your big accounts that you talk with regularly. So you need to be able to anticipate their needs, especially now. So, for example, with GHL, so we're in the business of providing um, credit card terminals to different merchants that we have, and some of the external stakeholders that we have are big, large banks here in the Philippines, and we have regular meetings with them. And obviously, it's not a perfect world, so there are complaints. So you need to be able to anticipate, what types of actions they're looking for in terms of addressing those complaints, and you need to be able to articulate what the actions will be done in order to rectify some of these complaints that they also receive. Okay, so you need to be able to mention that clearly so that they gain the confidence that, hey, your company is the right partner for us. Your company is you know the right vendor for us in terms of this, because you know what you're talking about. You know what you're gonna do if there are problems at hand. Focus on sense of urgency and sense of ownership and accountability. So this is something that is typical um, in any organization. though it's usually taken for granted based on my experience. So um, when you talk about sense of urgency and sense of ownership, this is something that is essential, especially in operations. You need to be able to ensure that your team um, does actions and as urgently as possible. Meaning to say, they understand the implications if they don't meet deadlines. They understand the implications if they don't own up to any mistake or error. They need to understand that these things are critical because the reputation of your company is at stake if you don't act with the sense of urgency and sense of ownership. So this is something that's very critical when you're running an operations team. And lastly on my list is motivate your team. Culture plays a very important role in terms of how your team operates. If your culture is negative, obviously you don't expect any. There will be performance, but it's going to be poor performance or bad performance. So you need to make sure that you have a very positive culture. Um, you're still able to motivate your team. What are the examples that we used to do in operations, especially in the BPO industry? So it's not about work all the time. So you need to be able to balance that with some fun related activities. So in my experience in the BPO industry, we used to do a lot of engagement related activities. So especially here in the Philippines, and obviously all companies have their Christmas parties. Obviously, all companies have other gatherings, but let's say playing games and playing, recognizing people when they achieve certain targets. You can still do that via Zoom. You can still do that via whatever platform you use. I think that's still important and essential so that people in your staff, your team, still feel recognized and rewarded for their efforts. Because if you don't, some people don't need, it doesn't have to be a monetary reward. Just recognizing someone. Let's say, hey, Dominic, you did a great job this week. Because of your efforts, we were able to reduce, cost by, let's say, 30%. And if you mention that in front of his peers, wow, it makes a huge difference in terms of, wow, I feel motivated. I'm pretty sure, in his mind, he's going to say, I'm like, wow, thank you for recognizing me. Thank you for, recognizing me in front of my peers. So I feel so, good, feel so positive because I was recognized in front of everyone. And it's very critical. Okay, next slide, please, Dominic. Okay, so here's a quote that I want to share with you. So one of the if you don't know Lee Iacocca, so he was very famous in the auto industry. So he developed the Ford Mustang and Pinto cars uh, while he was with Ford and Chrysler as the CEO during the 80s. So in the end, all business operations can be reduced to three words. So people, product, and profits. So very, very good for you guys to understand this, especially if you have plans of venturing into the operations world. It's all about the people. So if you don't have great people, if you don't have the knack to develop people, and if you don't have the passion to work with people, then operations is not for you. So it's all about the people because they make or break the business. So if you're a leader in operations, or for you guys, if you pretty sure you're all younger than me. If you want to venture into operations, um, check out the leaders. If you're a new hire and you enter into like any organization, and you go into the operations department, you know, check your leader, check the supervisors, the managers. Are they people, persons? Are they the type that motivates the team? Do they talk to me individually? Do they give me feedback? So if they don't, then I don't think that person is right for operations. Next, product. So your product obviously plays a vital role in what you do in operations. If you need to believe in your product, you need to have a very good product. You need to know the ins and outs of your product, so that when your customers talk to you, when your clients talk to you, you can you're able to explain clearly what the product is all about. But not only explain clearly, but what can this product do for me? How can this product help my company? So that's something that it's a basic thing that you need to impart to your team, so that they have a clear understanding that I need to understand what my product can do to help my clients and my customers. Profit. Why is this important? Obviously, organizations exist because they want to make profit. It's all about the bottom line, as we term it in the corporate world. So again, since we're talking about operations, you don't really have a lot of control in terms of the profit, because, as mentioned earlier, it's usually the sales team that brings in the revenue to the company. But you play a vital role. You play a very important role in terms of managing the costs, managing the operating expenses. And this is very critical. If you are able to manage costs and manage these operating expenses, then you're in a good place. Meaning, say, uh, the company will be will not be in the red. The company will survive, especially now in COVID, during the COVID situation that we're in. If you don't know, here in the Philippines, about 3,300 small, medium businesses or small, medium enterprises already shut down permanently because they couldn't sustain the business model anymore. They have literally folded up and they have closed their business. So very sad because of what's happening. So meaning to say, COVID-19 is something that doesn't happen every time. So this is a one-off situation for all of us. But let's say we normalize again. If you're part of operations, that's something that you need to literally look at. Meaning to say, you need to make sure that you control the expenses as much as possible, so that your company can survive any crisis. Okay. Do I still have a next slide, Dominic? There. I hope I was able to, I wanted to share with you my journey into the operations world. I wanted to share with all of you some of my best practices, some of the best practices that I've learned throughout my stay in the operations field. So I hope I was able to impart that to you guys. Um, Probably I'll end this with saying that operations is very exciting. So if you really want to go into operations, I think it's going to be a very, very exciting experience for you. It's going to be something that you will appreciate as you grow older. Like myself right now, really appreciate the fact that I stayed in the operations field because learned so much in terms of how the business should be run. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much for that wonderful talk, Sir John. Uh, we actually have some questions for you,
Sure,
prepared for you. But
sure.
to our viewers, if you want to ask any questions to Sir John, like I said earlier, please feel free to comment in the comment section below your question, and I'll be catering it to Sir John. So, Sir John, you've mentioned like the best practices in corporate operations.
Yep.
So, my question will be is like, what are signs of effective? What are the signs that ensures that you're doing an effective practice in operations?
Some of the telling signs, Dominic, that I can mention, probably the best example would be complaints, customer complaints. So if you have a very low number of customer complaints, then it highly suggests that your processes in operations is very effective. In my experience, I was able to manage. I managed a team before handling complaints, and if you tweak, certain parameters within your process, then if you measure it accordingly, and you can see an improvement, then it's a telltale sign that you have achieved best practice in operations.
Okay, sir. So, yeah, if there are less complaints, yeah, that is a
Yep.
good sign, sir, that
Yep.
uh, you're doing properly well. So, for the people who, in our view, maybe in our the people who's watching this, maybe some of them will
Yeah.
be wanting to join the operations team in the future, or maybe now. So, what traits does a company normally look for when you're, when you want to be in an operations team?
Some of the traits, let's say, when I interview people, um, obviously, aside from experience, you're looking for someone who is very proactive. You're looking for someone who is willing to do anything, meaning to say, he or she is willing to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty, and someone who is very engaged, someone who's very how do I define this? Someone who's very aggressive in a sense. Aggressive in a sense that he or she is willing to learn about the product and do the because operations it's a 24/7 thing. It doesn't mean that you're gonna stay in the office 24/7, but sometimes you need to be on call even if you're at home, ready to answer queries, ready to answer, questions or complaints. So if you're willing to do that, and if you're willing to learn about the product, and willing to ensure that the operations remain tight, then that you're someone that you're going to be good for operations.
Okay, sir. So, for those who are listening, just keep that in mind.
Yeah. So
So,
dedication is very important.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Uh, so actually, so there are times that when we're doing our work, we practice, as you mentioned, there are best practices.
Yep.
A lot of people does them, but how can you ensure that your staff can continuously employ these operations and just not like a one-time thing or maybe temporarily?
Yeah, very good question, Dominic. Actually, you need to incorporate certain KPIs into their scorecards. We need to say each each individual staff should have their individual scorecards on a monthly basis. And these scorecards should have a clear measure of the expectations that you have for that particular person. Um, each month you should be able to measure the performance of that person, and you know there are certain parameters that you need to meet. You need to give weight to each of these key performance indicators so that you can actually measure a person's output or performance on a regular basis. For us, my experience is we do this monthly. So each month, there is a scorecard that is generated for each staff based on their output. So you will know by the end of each month how all of your staff have performed for a given month.
That is quite interesting, sir. Scoring your staff
Yes,
just by
yeah,
measuring.
that's very important because if you don't have a scorecard, as you mentioned, so obviously the tendency is they will do a good job for a few days, a few weeks, but it will taper off. They will. It's human nature for us. If you don't, measure me, if you don't measure my performance on a regular basis, then the tendency is for that person to slack off, for lack of a better term. So I think it's human nature to be like that. So like us in operations, we're so used to being measured on a regular basis, so we don't uh, we're always on our feet, we're always very ready to do all the actions necessary so that because we know that our performance is being watched.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's just like in school. I mean, we have grades in school, right?
Yes, sir.
So you need to pass all your subjects or else you repeat, right?
True.
Similar concept, similar concept.
Yes, sir. So yeah, that is quite interesting way to measure your staff and to ensure that they continuously do this operation, do their best practice.
Yep.
So you've mentioned some strategies, sir, in your operations. So
Yep.
uh, what strategy do you think would be flexible at the same time increases accountability?
Uh, Probably the best strategy is what I laid out earlier. You need to have your operating rhythm. So you need to start from there. Um, Especially if you're joining, let's say you're a new manager joining a company, and everyone, all of your staff have been there for quite some time. As a new manager joining a company, let's say in operations, you need to be able to set their expectations. I mean, as a leader, what do you expect from them? As a leader, what do you expect from them in terms of performance, their output individually and as a group? You need to be able to set the parameters and the guidelines. So when you come in, you need to discuss, what is the operating rhythm going to be like as a new leader for this company. I guess when you set the expectations that way, uh, you'll be able to have a sort of guide so that you know what to do and they know what to do in terms of expectations and in terms of your relationship and in terms of how you will run the day-to-day operations. So I think that's very that's the most flexible strategy I can think of, because it's not going to be, well, you don't really come in saying, hey, this is what I want you to do. So what I'm saying is, this operating rhythm is a two-way street. You need to brainstorm about it. Meaning to say, for example, I'm the new manager entering into an organization that has been running for quite some time. Obviously, I set their expectations. This is my management style. This is the output that I expect. But you guys, what do you expect of me as your manager? How do you want me to manage the day-to-day operations? How do you want me to manage the team? So it's a two-way street, and then once you finish the brainstorming session, then you can create that operating rhythm and cascade it accordingly and ensure that, hey guys, this is our agreement, this is our way of work. since I'm going to be the new leader of this group. So we need to, be able to work within this guideline, so to speak. Accountability, I guess, as mentioned earlier, um, even though you have that operating rhythm, you still need to measure the performance. So accountability, it all boils down to what I mentioned earlier, the scorecard. So you need to be able to measure each of your staff on a monthly basis, so that you have a guide as to who should I support more. Let's say I have 10 staff, and then 7, 8, 9, 10 are really performing poorly. So I know I need to focus my attention on these like 4 people. I need to bring up their performance to the next level, so that everyone's going to be on the same boat. Everyone, it's going to be an equal playing field. Everyone feels supported, so to speak.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for that wonderful answer.
You're welcome. Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that's all of my questions for today. So, for everyone who are still watching and for those who attended this webinar, all of you can get a digital certificate of your attendance. For sure, you want to get yours. If so, just head on to our website at www.esme.ph, or you can click the link that will be posted in the comments section below. So make your account and navigate to the title of the webinar that you joined in. So once again, thank you, sir, so much, Sir John. Do you have anything that you want to promote or anything that you want to share before we end?
No, just you guys can follow me via LinkedIn. I think it's there on the screen. You can also check out our website, www.jhl.com. You can also, add me on Facebook if you want. But thank you so much for today. Really excited, really glad to have been able to share my knowledge and best practices. Very exciting session for me. Thank you so much, Dominic and team, and
Thank you
to
so much,
everyone
sir,
watching.
for
Thank you. Appreciate
giving
it.
us time. So, yeah, before we end this webinar, I would like to invite everyone who wants to learn more and increase their knowledge and skills. Just visit our website at www.esme.ph. That is www.esme.ph. We offer a wide range of master classes, those of which you can enroll in based on whatever is relevant to your passion, career, and interests. So once again, my name is Dominic Tanchico, and I've I'm glad that you're with me today. And once again, see you next time for another You Talk series. Goodbye.